All right, let's dive into something wildly fascinating today. You ever feel like the world's been feeding you a very specific narrative about certain countries, especially Russia, like cold, robotic anti-freedom, right? Well, buckle up, because today we're shattering those stereotypes with first-hand insights from investigative journalist Greg Reese. He lived in Moscow for 6 months, and what he discovered there is not what you've been told. I'll be honest. When Greg first mentioned his trip, I thought, wait, you're willingly moving to the evil empire from 1980s action movies. But his experience was nothing short of mind-blowing. Picture this. Streets cleaner than a billionaire's penthouse, people happier than most Americans, and a culture that values family, faith, and, get this, actual nobility. Not nobility like titles, but like a regalness to daily life. Women carrying purses with little side tables in restaurants, shoes off at the door like it's sacred ground. This isn't the grim, gray Russia of Hollywood. And here's the kicker. COVID? Barely a blip. Greg asked locals, and the consensus was hilarious. Masks were rare, shops ignored shutdown orders, and cops, they sided with the people. No draconian enforcement, just life. Meanwhile, America was losing its mind over toilet paper shortages. Makes you wonder who's really free, huh? But it wasn't all rosy. Language hurdles, brutal. Russian is the second hardest language globally, after Mandarin, and Greg, a guy who dabbles in languages, called it overwhelming. Cases, grammar rules, stuff that makes English look like preschool. And yet, he walked away with deep respect for Russian intelligence. Turns out, surviving harsh winters and governments breeds next-level problem-solving skills. Jared Diamond's guns, germs, and steel fans know cold climates reward long-term planning. Now, the real twist. How Russians viewed him, an American. Despite the U.S. government's hostility, sanctions, Nord Stream sabotage, individual Russians treated Greg like a rock star. "We love America," they'd say, hugging him. Brits? Not so much. Russians still hold grudges over historical UK beef. One gym-goer side-eyed him politely, but that was it. The rest? Warm, curious, even proud of their shared love for meat, cars, and guns. Sound familiar? Cough, Texas, cough. Oh, and the Orthodox Church? Massive influence. Their take on global evil, focused on Talmudic teachings, not Judaism itself. Greg stressed, Russia historically allowed religious freedom but drew lines at doctrines they saw as corrosive. Heavy stuff, especially compared to America's gender-fluid primary school curricula. But here's where it gets cosmic. Greg, who spent 20 years researching what he calls the human farm theory, think we're livestock for something smarter, thinks Russia's resistance to propaganda stems from knowing their government could turn on them. Russians don't blindly trust authority. Americans? Well, gestures at 2020 compliance rates. The finale? A bombshell. Greg expected to stay longer, until a media gig fell through over vaccine talk. "We don't discuss that," they said. His response, "If I'm going to be censored, I'd rather it be by my own government." So what's the takeaway? Russia's not the cartoon villain we're sold. It's complex, cultured, and, dare I say, kinder than our media admits. Meanwhile, the US and UK play divide and conquer, keeping two powerhouse populations at odds. Classic Wolfowitz doctrine. Final thought. With 2025 on the horizon and Greg predicting chaos, maybe it's time to question all the narratives, because if there's one thing Greg Reese proves, it's that the truth is always stranger and more fascinating than the fiction. Catch you next time. Stay curious.
This has been a BrightLearn.ai summary of an interview between Greg Reese and Mike Adams on January 7, 2025. The full interview is available at brighteon.com, where you can also find podcasts and special reports by Mike Adams and other creators. Visit naturalnews.com for full editorial coverage of this interview and breaking news on critical stories that will keep you informed and aware of what's really going on.